And there's a scary statistic that I always like to point out is a woman that is Black, that has a PhD and is wealthy, has a greater chance of dying than a white woman who has a college, has a GED or less. And that is stark contrast. And so it's not a wealth situation. It's not a knowledge situation on the patient. It is a medical complex that that person is walking into.
Hi, I'm Clarissa from Love Fearlessly, and I want to tell you about the products we create with faith and purpose in mind. At Love Fearlessly, we design biblical affirmation cards, journals, and wall art to encourage you and keep God's promises front and center in your life. These are more than just beautiful items, they're tools to help you stay rooted in Scripture, speak life over yourself, and create an atmosphere of faith in your home. Whether you're starting your day with affirmations, journaling your prayers, or decorating your space with God's truths, our products are here to remind you that His love and promises never fail. So if you're ready to bring more faith and encouragement into your daily life, check us out. At Love Fearlessly, we're here to help you live boldly in God's love.
What's up, Bravehearts community? This is Sean Heineman, your premier pre-engagement coach, back with another segment of It's Scary to Remarry, inspiring you to love fearlessly with my co-host, Aquila Maddox. How are you doing today, Q?
I'm doing good. How are you? Happy
Ah,
Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you. See you know the glow up game is like times 20.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, you try to look warm when it was 11 degrees outside today.
Yeah, for sure. No,
Yes, yes.
I was looking at the CDC, and they said, according to the CDC, Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy related causes than any other group. And, of course, a lot of us know that statistic. Um,
Yes.
I mean, my wife, we had back-to-back boys who had autism, and that was a big concern. My wife had a preeclampsia.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not a
Not
woman.
a
I don't
medical
want to mess this
professional,
up.
but definitely I'm familiar with preeclampsia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
for
At
sure.
least at least heard of it. Gratefully, I've not experienced it, but I've heard of it for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Our guest, she's an expert. We're going to talk about the importance of having a doula in your life. I think, and I'm just really getting on to this, right?
Uh-huh.
Maybe just a couple of years ago, and I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
our folks need some help for real, for real. So,
But
uh,
it's good to see the guys getting involved in the conversation. And I'll
yes.
be honest with you, Sean. So I commend you for being a very active participant in the process for your wife. You know what I mean? And just because I mean, that was a thing back in the day. Like men stayed in like, a different segment of the conversation than women. I'm grateful to see the evolution of companies where there is paternity leave, not just maternity leave, things that are really encouraging men to get involved. So I really am like super stoked to have this conversation with a male. And, especially you because you're definitely evolved in your thinking and you're open and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to our guest today too to be able to hear more and get educated about it. Because I think, like myself, there are so many people who can say, I've heard of it. I know what it's about. I got some version of information, but we can always use more education on these various topics so we can support and know because this stuff used to be fancy back in the day, like being like, oh, I got a doula. We like, oh, they got money. Mhm. You know what I mean? And so this is gonna be good because I've been hearing people like, girl, it's not much different than you just going to your own medical provider. And I'm like, what? Again, kids are older. My baby is 16. So the doula conversation was really new still at the time I was having my last child. So this is going to be good. I'm looking forward to having our guest today.
Yes, for sure. Today's guest is a passionate birth doula and president of the Central Texas Doula Association. Her work focuses on supporting families through pregnancy and birth, a devoted mother of three. She is neurodivergent herself, is an advocate for education, and she is making a significant impact on reproductive advocacy, especially for Black moms in her vibrant Austin community. Bravehearts community, let's show some love to Michelle Cruz. How are you doing this evening, Michelle?
I'm doing great. I am so thankful to be here. I could probably talk about this for more hours than your hard drive can handle. So we'll just keep it in, pull it in. But I eat, breathe, sleep, birth, and I'm excited to chat about this.
Awesome. Welcome, Shell. Welcome, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Yes, for sure. And Austin in the building,
Yes,
Representing. I see
yes.
y'all. I see y'all, Austin folks.
Yeah, been here a long time. Call
Yeah,
it my home. So yeah, for sure.
That's good. That's good. Well, can
awesome.
we start off by asking what is neurodivergent?
Yes, that is a great question. So a lot of folks are curious about that. They say, "Oh, it's a new coined phrase." It means your brain functions differently than a typical person. So in my instance, and in my whole household, I like to say we have a variety of acronyms. So I have ADHD, I have CPTSD, so I have complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. I also have some anxiety, depression. I have folks in my family that have autism. I have folks in my family that are struggling with other neurological things, but it just means we think and feel differently, and that affects our whole being. Doesn't mean that we're less than by any means, but we definitely view the world and move through it differently than a typical person.
Very, very, very good explanation because that was my first question. Was like, wait, what is neurodivergent? I did go through your page
Okay.
and listen to, I saw one of your lives. I saw some reels, but I saw one of your lives where you hadn't been in going live for a while. So very great energy, and I was looking forward to this, but I was like, I know what I'm gonna ask. Please
You can
educate
ask
me.
me anything. I am an open book about all topics that I'm well of. And if I don't know what it is, I'll find you the information because
I
that's what
can
I want
dig
to do
it.
is make sure you have evidence-based information that's not just an opinion or a point of view. I want you to have, and that's just being a doula, and that's just me too, but like information that is solid and truthful.
That's good. Okay.
Mm, I love it. Yeah, man. And like I said earlier in the show that I have two boys who have autism. So of course, Michelle, when we had a chance to talk, I was just like, oh, we got to address this. I even had a
Yeah.
series a couple of months ago, Autism Beyond a Diagnosis, and I had some guests come on there and we talked about it because I'm learning this as well.
Yeah.
So great question, Q, for those just who might not know, because it's easy to hear a lot about it, but to have the conversation, I think this is needed. We had a guest, or not a guest, I'm sorry, but we had someone on Instagram Live that had a question. If we want to jump into this, since we are live,
Yeah.
I think her name is Sherilyn. She said, what is it? Just why? I guess she said, why is it that Black women die from pregnancy? I
Mhm.
guess we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but I did want to ask that question.
Yeah, that is a heavy question. So, for a couple different reasons. One, we're seeing what's called implicit bias. So, if people are entering the medicalization of birth. So, birth, back in the early 1900s and 1800s, we had midwives, and it was very home-centered and it was very centered into what the person needs and listening and responding to their needs. And with the transition from midwifery to obstetrics, as we call the medicalization of birth, we're now going into clinics, we're going into hospitals, and we're less listening to what the person is saying and what they're experiencing. And so, what that comes is we're going into places where it's not designed to cater or listen to what someone's needs are. So, we're seeing people coming into the hospital situation actively in labor. They're healthy, they're educated, they have everything they need at home, and they're saying, "Hey, I don't feel well. Hey, I don't feel well." And someone is saying they're fine, they're overreacting, and the person actually is experiencing a medical emergency that could be prevented with some medication, an IV medication, or another, check, and it's being ignored. And so there's lots of preventable deaths, and that's what are happening in the United States that could be stopped immediately if we, the medical world acknowledged and heard what the patient was saying. And so I have a good friend that lives and works in Brooklyn. She lives in one of those works in those hospitals that they make documentaries about, where we've lost a lot of Black women. And she says they just ignore people left and right. They're ignoring their pain, they're ignoring their bleeding, they're ignoring their voices, and they are putting them in a category of, you're just exaggerating. You don't need that support. And there's this preconceived notions about Black health. One, that we're all afraid of doctors and that we're not going to listen. So we're automatically put in this category of obstinate, rude, objectable, we're not going to comply, when actually there's lots of years of racism in this country that shows we've been mistreated. And so like they call it the father of obstetrics. He actually used slaves and nurses and operated on them without anesthetics to discover how the uterus and the fallopian tubes work. And so the whole basis of what we know as birth now was built on the back of slavery and built on the back of hurting Black bodies.
Mhm.
And so all these things compound. And then you get someone like like myself, healthy, doing well, go to the doctor, and they're like, you have to have a cesarean. And I'm like, well, why? You have to have a cesarean. And I was young, I didn't know the difference, and I went ahead and did it. Ended up being a very challenging cesarean. I ended up with an extra incision on my uterus that was unnecessary
Mhm.
because the doctor couldn't deliver my baby in the OR. And here we are saying you wanted to prevent that, so we had a cesarean, and yet we're still having the same problem that you predicted, is that I wouldn't be able to deliver my baby, but you couldn't deliver it as the professional. So there's all these things that the medical world doesn't acknowledge. They don't acknowledge our strength. They don't acknowledge our ancestral knowledge. They don't even want to welcome the idea that our bodies know what we're doing and we have strength to do so. And so we're losing families, we're losing mothers, we're losing children to this. And now there's this generation of men raising babies without their spouses. And that to me is just like heartbreaking because of preventable causes. This is just something that gives me chills, but like these are women that if they had been heard and cared for, and it could have been something simple as a magnesium drip for preeclampsia. You know, they could have got magnesium at the beginning of their medical treatment for their labor and been fine. But it was like, no, everybody has headaches. Everybody's vision's a little blurry, ignoring the symptoms. And then next thing you know, we're left in a medical emergency. So it's a lot of racism. It's a lot of people being ignored. And I honestly feel like any time you go into a space healthy and you're told that you automatically get in this bed, put this jacket on, put these socks on, now you're being told that you're sick when you came in healthy. And so treating medical emergencies in birth as a birth emergency instead of a medical emergency changes the viewpoint. So a lot of re-educating needs to be done, a lot of support needs to be done for these nurses and these doctors, and it is a whole retraining needs to be done. But yes, and I see it every day. I see it every day, and it goes beyond just birth, but into the fourth trimester. So women are experiencing heart attacks, and that first 3 months after birth, coming in with chest pain, they're being told it's anxiety. You just ate too much spicy food. People that are like lifelong vegans that run triathlons, that
Mhm.
are healthy, and they're, the peak physical fitness, double PhDs going in saying like, I don't feel well, and they're being ignored. And there's a scary statistic that I always like to point out is a woman that is Black, that has a PhD and is wealthy, has a greater chance of dying than a white woman who has a college, has a GED or less.
Mhm.
And that is stark contrast. And so it's not a wealth situation. It's not a knowledge situation on the patient. It is a medical complex that that person is walking into. So we as doulas will flag areas for folks to avoid, providers to avoid. Here in Austin, some hospitals I will not send a Black mother into. I will do everything we can to get them care somewhere else because I know what they walk into them. It's like walking in the Wild Wild West. We just know it's going to be an uphill battle.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
think the other side of that too is actually, you said, our strength is being ignored. It's actually also being overly emphasized.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times, the expectation is that we have the strength to deal with, to endure, to be okay. And that's also a problem that we have sometimes with each other. And
Yes.
because we are ignored in those kind of settings, we are taught, in some way or another, we're passed down that same thought process of thought when it comes to each other. Because I must tell you, I've had to recognize that even in my own family or friend dynamic, where I have to say, just because you were able to deal with this doesn't mean that I have to deal with it in the
Mhm.
way you dealt with it, and nor does that make me weaker, nor does that make you better. You know, it makes us different. And I think that is a really, it's a perpetuated issue that's been long term in some way or another. So I do appreciate the emphasis of the individual person and being very specific to what their needs are. I do value that so much in just various ways because I don't think that being dismissive is ever effective care. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's never effective. So to hear that and then, the extent that you shared around how this has impacted us. So I'm such a thinker, but to even hear you say that those who are more educated get ignored, I can imagine. I think it's a form of dismissal because it's like
Yes.
you're going to come in here and you have your education, you have some form of knowledge. Let me dismiss you to make you feel like I'm over you because that's a power struggle. That's what I imagine that it could be. It's not that that's the only reason, but that's a reason that I can see somebody saying, let me dismiss the education and the information and knowledge that you have, maybe some research you've done or your experience, because I want to prove that I know more than you because we share similar, some type of whatever, you know what I'm saying? Just being educated in and of itself. So that's very sad to hear, but I can definitely see even more the value of having a doula intervene on your behalf or intercede on someone's behalf. So I commend you. I commend you.
For sure, for sure. Michelle, who or what inspired you to become a doula for not neurodivergent women?
So I actually was gifted postpartum services. I had twins. So my firstborn is 11, my twins are 7. So when I had twins, a dear friend of mine was like, I'm going to come help you. I'm a postpartum doula. She did overnight care and it transformed me. And I realized in that, probably about week 7 or 8 of postpartum, I was up one night. We're nursing. So I got 2 babies right here and my toddler's asleep in the other room and she's talking to me and she's making me a snack at like 3 in the morning. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to help people because I knew that birth had to be a way to protect someone's future into parenthood because I had 2 very different deliveries. And so when I talked to her about it, and she was like, yeah, like, you get to be there at the tenderest moments, you're there to support people. And I realized, like, this is what I want to do. And what's funny is my sister had the same idea around the same time. We ended up calling each other, like, let's be doulas. It sounds like the best thing. And so we took a training together. I call it like maybe the Berkeley of training schools. It was kind of like not for everybody, but some people like it. And we did like a 17-week course, like hours and hours of lectures and readings and support. And it literally hit me like, I know who needs this. Folks that think like me, folks that are dealing with extreme anxiety, folks that get overlooked, that have a hard time speaking up for themselves. They may not be aware of what's going on in the room. And that's a lot of what I do is like watching the doctors, watching the nurses, translating this medical speak and terminology into plain English. So folks are like, they're saying codes and acronyms and words, and my client's like, what is going on? And I'm like, they're not even talking about you, talking about somebody else, but like letting them know what's going on. And that has helped me. And I think I had a client about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, who had autism and reached out to me because she knew I was neurodivergent and helping her was transformative to me. And now I was like, okay, now I'm going to niche down even more to what I do. Because before I was kind of just broadly helping like BIPOC folks and like other fat women. And I kind of like pulled it down deeper to be like folks that are dealing with anxiety. They're dealing with, autism, ADHD, sensory overload, OCD, folks that struggle with contact, germ contacts and things and thinking they're going to become ill. That has helped. And I think because those people are already put in a box of like, they're too difficult. Like, I don't want to talk to them, or this mom requires you to not look at her or whatever. I understand what that's like to be othered. As a mixed kid with a white mom and a black dad, automatically othered. It's like, which camp do I sound in? It's like, I sound white and I sound black. I look confusing. So it's like, I had crazy hair all growing up. So I'm like, I know what it's like to automatically be looked at because you're over there, with your fidget and you're trying to be calm. And they're like, we just need to draw your blood. And you're just like, give me a minute. And the person's stressed out. And then I come over and I'm like, hey, they need 2 minutes. I'm going to put a timer on my watch. They're going to take 2 minutes. Next thing you know, the person's like, yes, take my blood. And the nurse is like, how did you do that? I'm like, I just gave them their time. I gave them their respect. I honored them for where they are, which isn't hard. But I feel like sometimes the nurses don't realize that I do more than just help the client. I'm helping them too, so they can accomplish their goals. And so
Yeah.
helping other people like myself has been helpful to myself and them, but
Yeah.
realizing that there wasn't support. Now there are some neurodivergent doulas we're slowly cropping up. But it's necessary. It's a huge need.
Yeah. That's awesome though. That's really awesome. I think we've kind of heard it best said, we kind of serve usually who we are
Yeah,
already been, so that's really great to hear. And I can hear the excitement and it sounds fulfilling. You know what I mean? Like
it
you're
is.
like very happy. And I think if I'm honest, so I have in my own ways similar in a way where I'm like, I know who I have the ability to speak their language. So I get to be the interpreter, basically.
Yes.
And I can hear that makes you feel good to be able to interpret, speak their language, bring them down, and like you're saying, like to calm their nerves and help them feel normal in a very irregular circumstance because the irregularity may not be in appearance. It may not
Yeah.
be what you automatically that meets the eye. And that's the challenging part because most people, if they don't see a deformity or if they don't see some type of, you know, um, whatever, some type of external factor that makes them have to make the adjustment, it's challenging. So like you
Mhm.
said, they're automatically met with, okay, hurry up, or what's wrong with you or whatever. So that's really good that you get to, level the playing field, if you will, for them to be able to just kind of have a normal atmosphere while they're really not necessarily feeling the most normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my funnest thing to do. It's my dream job. Like
I
I
love it.
don't it's not work to me. It's like going to play, you know? But it's too, I do take clients that aren't neurodivergent as well, that just have anxiety and stress, and they too reach out because they see I'm going to give them high touch service and
That's
support.
good.
Mhm.
That's good.
I love it. Well, what unique challenges do neurodivergent women face during pregnancy and childbirth, and
Oh,
and how do you address them? I know you talked about giving them a minute or two because I with my boys, I'm familiar with that. Uh,
yeah. Prenatally, I like to make sure everybody is full of education. I think education in any pregnancy point of view helps with a lot of anxiety and stress. And so I provide everybody with like a book full of information, as much information as I can jam pack. And then I was thankful enough to get to work with Educated Birth, and they were able to sponsor me one of their binders full of diagrams and stuff. So it's like a whole binder of information that covers everything from prenatal life to labor and delivery to postpartum, and it's visual. So I'm able to show visual information with written context of what it looks like. And so the more I can educate someone on the stages of what they're going to be experiencing, I find the better it reduces their fear, more likely they are to disclose how they're experiencing life and go through it. And I think too that the challenge a lot of neurodivergent folks experience is the fear of the unknown. They don't know what's happening or what's going to happen, and so I talk about every aspect. And so there's some things with birth and with the female body folks don't want to discuss. Like, for instance, I had a client this last week ask me the difference between an episiotomy, which is when they go ahead and manually cut the tissues, versus a natural tear. And we went into an in-depth conversation. They were like, thank you so much. I had no idea there was a difference between a natural tear and having a scalpel. To the chagrin of her husband, who was like, what is going on? But I'm like, look, this is information. And I said, even if you don't use that information, that education, your friend might experience one. You might hear about a family's experience, and you can give context to it with the information that you learn. So I try to let people know, even if you don't use these nuggets about birth and postpartum, you can share with somebody else, because there's always going to be more babies being born. Like that's
Yeah.
just a fact of life. But I feel like the fear of the unknown is huge. And then I feel like societal pressure. So, like, for instance, in pregnancy, the pressure to feel amazing while you're pregnant and feel beautiful and feel like you're growing this beautiful baby. Some people don't realize pregnancy is
Honey,
awful sometimes.
honey, tell the truth and shame the
It
devil.
is bad. Like your face gets wide, your nose starts running for no reason, you got hemorrhoids, your hair's growing everywhere, or it's falling out. Like, it's not pretty. And so I feel like I have to remind folks, like, you might feel disgusting on Monday, shower Monday night and have a beautiful Tuesday. But Wednesday, the disgusting creature is going to come back. So like being aware that like you're going through so much hormonal changes and physical changes that you have to be flexible. So I usually say the word flexible like 100 times in the course of my relationship with my clients because it is something that has to be learned. A lot of
It is.
neurodivergent folks, and even those who are neurotypical, they're stuck in their ways. They're connected to who they are because the routine gives them safety. And
Yeah.
I'm not against getting rid of the routine, but I'm going to be modifying it. So creating like rituals for relaxation, rituals to help them, digress from the day and be able to communicate what's going on. I also provide a lot of leading questions for postpartum. So on the back of my education, I provide 4 or 5 pages that's just about communicating with partners on questions they need to prepare, like who's going to handle the dog walking? How are we going to handle family? Who's going to connect and pay the bills? What happens if you lose your job and I have to go back to work and now you guys stay at home dad? Like having those conversations before baby's even here is so helpful. So that way, when the person that's laboring is like, they're not worried about other things. And then baby comes and they're home holding beautiful baby, they already know what their jobs are. So like I usually tell
Yeah.
families, like, what's something that you really want to do? What's something about postpartum you really want to do? Okay, I want to do the morning diaper change. Okay, well, that means the other partner's going to do the evening diaper change and do those, create the routine. So I say practice it now. And the more that folks can visualize the truth of what's going to happen, the more prepared they are. So our brain, also love neuroscience, but our brains don't quite know the difference between a perceived threat
Yep.
or perceived fear. It's whatever we think it is. So I like to tell folks, prepare now. Think about all those experiences now. So think about what it's like to come home at the end of the hospital stay and there's pizza boxes everywhere from grandma and grandpa. The grass isn't cut. The bills are stacking up. The phone's ringing. People are like, bam, let me see that baby. Let me come in. Let me hold that baby. You're like, uh-uh, like stop. So I'm like, look, go back to the back of the book and say, okay, grandma's going to come in and she's going to clean the kitchen. Bobo's gonna come over here and cut the lawn. I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna go feed the baby and hide in the room. Lock the door. I say invest in some locks for the doors so that oh, I'm sorry, you can't hold baby. They're napping. She's scrolling on TikTok. She ain't napping because she needs that boundary. So creating that boundary of like, what do we do when everything goes wrong? And thinking about that now. So like, how am I going to conquer this stress when it happens? Because eventually that's going to happen. Eventually it's going to happen. You're coming home on Friday. They ain't nothing to cook. Everyone's frustrated. Baby's crying. You're leaking breast milk, like, like all the things. And that reality is going to happen. So we start planning for it now. And I think that removes so much frustration.
Mm,
And then even like physical things like with labor, like I do offer my folks who are neurodivergent labor classes where we can actually get in the positions we're going to be in, see how it feels in our body. So it's not the first time you're
Yeah.
holding your legs up in the air,
Yeah. Yeah.
because sometimes folks are like, what do you mean? My legs are going up in the air. And I'm like, let's practice this now. Or getting on all fours, or what it's like to have the lights out and be pregnant. Because some folks, they are either lights on neurodivergent or lights off neurodivergent. So depending on like, are you a no big light family or the big light's always on? Experiencing life. And then two, I bring all my goodies. Bring all my goodies. So I bring like my TENS machine. I bring a space light. I have twinkle lights I bring. I bring essential oils. I bring fidgets. I bring sometimes I have, depending on those who are sensory divergent, when they need like more pressures, I have a little like spike mat that has like spikes to put on your feet or behind your neck to give more sensation. And those that need opposite, I will bring nothing. And they're like, hold my hand the whole time. That's all I want you to do. I'm like, I got that. I
yeah.
can hold your hand.
Good.
But providing the physical planning and the mental planning, I think, is the biggest thing, because the more that someone can experience something before it happens, the
Yeah.
better. Because we have no idea what's happened. Labor and birth is unpredictable. And I wish I could say,
100% of
they're,
the time.
oh, it's all going to be great.
Mhm.
Well, we
Yeah.
can't say that. That's not fair.
A hundred
So
percent.
I'm
Yeah.
like, we're all gonna be crying. Someone's gonna be sweaty. Someone's gonna stink. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
we're all hungry. And you know how we solve that? We call a friend, we call a postpartum doula, we call mom, and be like, I need you to bring me a hot meal and come with your mop
Mhm.
because there's work to be done.
Yeah.
So planning. I love to plan.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about that, about the important topics that couples should discuss regarding
Yeah.
their goals and expectations in pregnancy, because I think that's not discussed enough
No.
because
Right.
there's chaos going on. Like you say, especially if you are the mom, or the wife, and you run the household,
Yeah.
like the household revolves around you. And if you don't have those conversations, have you ever ran into those situations before where people were just unorganized?
Yes, I have. I've run into all styles of couples. What's funny to me is I like what what Q said is like you attract the same people like you. I've attracted so many couples that are just like me and my husband. It's not even funny. Where it's like I am doing everything and he's like right behind me, like picking it up. You know what I mean? But yeah, I have couples sometimes where it's like, what do you mean I have to cook dinner? I'm like, you're gonna have to cook dinner. And they're like, cook dinner? And I'm like, dude, like she literally said, put the lasagna in and put it in for an hour, take the lid off, 15 more minutes and it's done. And he's like, oh. I'm like, also, we can read instructions. I'm like, and I tell them, I tell my dudes all the time, my guys, I'm like, everything that's in this house is researchable. Google has the ability now to help us with so many things.
Yeah.
Even ChatGPT, so many things. So I give them a list. Like I literally have lists of topics of how to care for them, what questions to ask for like postpartum care, but also like how to adjust that thinking that like I'm going to be doing different things. Because I think that's a huge portion of challenge is like I'm not going to be able to do the same things I always did. And now I have to be flexible. So, for instance, the couple I was working with a couple weeks ago, they're trying to navigate what it's like to, think about it now, prenatally. What is it going to be like with feeding? And the mother was like, "Well, I want to make sure that he gets a chance to feed whenever he wants." I'm like, let's think about this.
Mhm.
That puts more work on you because then you have to be pumping milk or making formula, which makes more bottles and more dishes. So how about he gets to change the diaper whenever he wants and you keep working on feeding? Because it is a skill. Breastfeeding is a skill, pumping is a skill, and it is a challenge. And so instead of adding a new thing like I have to pump in order for my husband to feed the baby so they can feel bonded, there are many ways for a father and a child to bond beyond just feeding.
Mhm.
And I feel like, and I'll tell you, in the Black community, it's like, you got to pump that milk. Pump that milk. I got to feed that baby. I'm like, can you please give me a minute to collect myself?
Mhm.
Because you can give baby a bath, read them a book, take them for a walk, have them watch your daily chores, put them down for a nap, and don't have to add that. So it's like this adjustment. And I'll tell you, I've put some grandmas in the corner too. But with husbands and fathers, letting them know like there's more than one way to connect and practicing those conversations now. So I gave them this scenario of okay, in the middle of the night, baby wakes. What do we do? And she's like, I'll give him a pump milk. I'm like, instead of doing that, you go ahead and you go to the bathroom and you relieve yourself, freshen up. Dad takes the baby, change the baby's diaper. Baby's fresh and clean now, awake and alert, ready to nurse. Dad gives the baby to mom, mom latches baby. While baby's nursing, dad goes, refreshes the water bottle, gets a snack, checks the diaper cart, makes sure mom has nipple cream, gets
Mhm.
those things together, brings them to her. Baby's done feeding because it doesn't take that long in the middle of the night. Dad takes baby, puts them back to sleep. Mom puts nipple cream on, eats her snack, drinks her water, goes back to bed.
Wow.
Everybody got to see baby. Everybody got to help each other out. And next thing you know, you're doing this every night. You're having connection, those conversations, those cute little meet cutes in the kitchen in the middle of the night. Your connection, your communication is better because you're able to understand that we can be flexible. And maybe that doesn't work. Maybe they need to do the opposite. Maybe dad is going to bottle feed because mom's not breastfeeding. They're doing formula. That's fine. But
Mhm.
finding those little ways to practice those conversations, relieve remove the expectations,
Mm-hmm.
remove societal expectations of like
Mm-hmm.
men don't change diapers. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Millennial men are the most participatory parents of any generation.
Really?
Millennial men are in it to win it. They are
Yes.
like changing diapers. They are changing mom's diapers. They are like catching
Wow.
babies. I'm not even kidding. Like dads are scrubbing up, putting on gowns at the hospital, standing in front of the doctor and catching their own children.
Yeah.
Like they are doing the thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I know.
Here's the thing, Michelle, because the doctor asked me to
Oh,
cut the doctor asked me to cut the umbilical cord of my baby boy.
yeah.
He's 4, right? And I was like, uh, you want me to cut that? I'm just a bystander, right? Like I'm like, hey, we good. He was like, come on, Sean. I'm like, he's like this vibrant 61-year-old, run triathlons, and he's Sean, come on, you got this. And I was like, oh my
I
God.
think I know who you're talking about.
Really? You
Yeah,
probably know then, huh?
I think I know who you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
you probably know then. Okay. Yeah, he's been rocking with us for years. So yeah, you probably know.
Hmm.
And I was just like, okay. And I cut it and I was just expecting the worst to happen.
Oh no.
But I was like, okay. I was like, okay, it wasn't that bad, but I was through having kids after that. I don't
Yeah.
know what your experience was, Q. Is this
They
bringing
cut
back
they cut
memory?
umbilical cords, umbilical cords were cut, but again, that's why I said we've evolved because I agree that men are becoming more participatory. But I do think it's also really good, and you said it, to debunk a bunch of the societal norms. That's kind of what I was hearing over and over again in a different way. Because I think that we are really good. I think, I don't know about nobody else, but my personal perspective is I think us women's have the most vibrant imaginations ever. I think it's a woman thing. I'm not saying that men can't be creative in thought, but I think ours is so elaborate. Like we're planning life as we know it from the kitchen table. Like
Yes.
we can plan every possible perfection. We're talking perfection, by the way. We can plan every perfect thing and it's so far from reality. Okay. And it guess what? And then we meet our demise because we have this unrealistic expectation and now we feel like we're below normal and average. So with that being said, I had a son. My kids are 7 years apart. I was definitely fat and pregnant, happy, excited, but baby, I gained all the weights. Okay, I gained 60 whole pounds. My doctor projected, oh, you're gonna gain 20 pounds because I was 123 pounds forever. I got up to 183. And for the girl who ain't never felt her legs rub together, that was the worst
Yeah.
thing in the world. I could barely make it up a set of stairs without labored breathing. Again, a lot of different things, but she said in my head, because we are all like trying to put everybody in a box. So instead of her saying, which I think would have been helpful, instead of her saying, your body is going to do what the baby needs. You should have said that at the beginning, sis. You shouldn't have said at
Yes.
the end when you're trying to justify why I feel like crap for gaining 60 pounds and questioning whether or not I'm overeating when reality was my body didn't have enough of what it needed to carry the baby. But you jacked me up in the head because you started out telling me I was gonna gain 20 pounds and be real cutesy, very demure, but she wasn't mindful. So
Mm-mm.
with that being said, here we are. So I love the fact that you get to help people tap into reality early because like I said, I think as women in general, we can be very imaginative in these perfect experiences. And I don't think it's to really do harm, but it does us harm.
Yeah.
And then we are, I remember, like I said, I remember feeling fat. I remember feeling like, what did I do wrong? I remember questioning all these things that were very healthy for me. Take a note. I mean, pause, go to the next baby. I was in the most pain in the world. I had every part of my body was aching. And then I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Again, very imaginative because what do you hear? People are like, "Oh my God." And I did too. I ain't gonna lie. My first pregnancy, it was a different, I didn't have all the pains. Um I had um I can't think of no term, don't judge me. But basically I had contractions from 4 months until delivery every single day. Braxton Hicks, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Braxton Hicks every day. And they told me if she came early, they couldn't save her. It was too soon. They sure did. So I was already stressed because I was concerned about losing my baby.
Yeah.
It was so many things. So that's why I'm saying like it really helps because if I had an expectation, there was a possibility I could have had this different, very different experience. I think it would have helped my stress level. Because who's to say I wasn't inducing some of those Braxton Hicks my own self by being in a stressful state? And it was a lot. But then I also had to realize because I was easily triggered to have Braxton Hicks every single day, people came over and had to cook for me, do dishes, mop my floor. They had to do all those things. So what I'm saying is I absolutely love that you get to bring normalcy to things that look like they're abnormal. where a woman is feeling like, why can't I do all the things by myself? Honey, you're normal. It's okay. You may not be able to do that. You may need to check out and go, like you said, create that space to just go scroll and be on the phone. And so I'm not a doula, but I came from a family where my mother had 8 children. I'm her oldest. So I used to help my mother with every child after me. And then my mother is one of 16. So having
You
big
was the oldest
families,
of eight, Q?
I'm the oldest of 8.
Oh, so you was like a built-in doula. So you were
Yeah.
you were in-house doula, huh?
In-house helping with the babies, going to fix bottles. And so even though my dad was there, men were so far from the process. That's why I'm like, I see us evolving because
Yeah.
men were so far. My dad was like, he wasn't really he would make a bottle if he absolutely had to. And it didn't, and that time, I don't know if it was you're not helping. I don't know if that was the conversation or if it was just the expectation. But that was a thing. But anyhow, my mother was always the one, if you would, she would be the doula, essentially. Because with her having so many kids, she gets around people, they've had babies, she's helping, she's doing this. She's rubbing their feet. She's massaging. She's asking if they need music, blah, blah, blah. With that being said, one of my girlfriends had a baby, and I told her I would be her night nurse. And I went and I did that for her so and she pumped milk, and then I would help her set up. Obviously, again, not a doula. I come from an old school background where community is what you know what I'm saying, what we really were built on. Like everybody works together, you rally around the mom, you provide that support for her. You know what I mean? And you don't belittle the man because he's not out here doing like what the modern men, like you just talked about, are doing today. We all came together. We helped each other as other women, and support. But I just again love that if we have this one box cookie cutter expectation for everybody's experience, I think that can propel us to even be in a worse what's it called? What is it? What's the depression? Like postpartum depression
Mhm.
after,
Yeah.
I think it can make it, I don't know if it can trigger it, but I know it can definitely not help it and make it worse.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Oh, and this is a great episode. I don't want to get too far off, but I do want to talk about our sponsor is the Love Fearlessly Intimacy Card Deck. If you haven't got your intimacy card deck, make sure you check out in the description below, scarytoremarried.com/products. You will see it on that page. This is great for date night, marriage, getting to know someone. These are 30 great questions that will really spark the conversation. So, Michelle, I want to take a card from the deck.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And I want to ask you a question.
Sounds like fun.
Okay. Question. What are your perspectives on gender roles? Do you believe men and women should have distinct roles in household management and finances?
That is a beautiful question. So I have the perspective that there are roles in the house, but they can be assigned and chosen by someone's strengths, not necessarily their gender. So for instance, in my household, my husband is an aerospace engineer. He sleeps and dreams of math all day. Like math for him is just like the best thing on the planet. Like that's his thing. So he handles finances because he can see these numbers in some ways I can't conceptualize. And so I like to do strength-based stuff. And sometimes it does kind of play into some gender roles. Have this nurture, overwhelming need and desire to nurture where he may struggle in those areas. So when the kids fall down, they're like, Mom. And I'm like, sometimes I can't come because maybe I'm out of birth. And so they'll like acknowledge and like I tell them, Daddy has strengths to help you, just like I do. And I'm not present, he can help you. And there's things we don't want, Mom, we want Dad to help us. And he'll say, Mom can help it. You got to trust her knowledge. And so reinforcing our strengths has been a wonderful part. But then again, there's sometimes like literally tonight, I made like a bomb pot of like chicken noodle soup, and the kids are like, this is the best. Only yours. No one else's. Like they're slurping it up. All the veggies, like, I don't know what you do. You just throw it down. It's so good. But they're like, we don't want dad's. That just makes them ramen. You know what I mean? Like that, but like knowing our strengths and being honest about it. And sometimes that takes hard conversations, or we'll literally have a conversation being like, hey, I'm struggling in this. I don't think I can do it anymore. We have to like trade. I can't think of what it's called, but Fair Play. There's a really cool deck of cards called Fair Play, and it's literally, I think, 165 tasks that couples deal with, and it's cards. So we'll literally say, like, you're holding the card for dishes, the card for field trips, and the card for finances. I'm going to hold the card for auto maintenance, household taxes, and parties with family. And so I know for the next like 3 months that what I'm responsible for, and I don't have to worry about the other things because I know and I'm confident that my husband will handle those things. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
super fun.
Mm,
I
I
love
like
it.
that.
That's
that
good.
is good. Q, do you hold more of a traditional role, or are you open to more of like,
Okay, so my husband has autism and ADHD, and I believe that I am autistic as well, but in a different part of the spectrum. I really feel like our household is so blended, but I do with 100% give him headship to decision making because we are a Christian household, so I do make sure like if there's a large decision, I will give my voice. Like you will know my point of view. But if there's something that I'm like can defer, I'll let him handle it. So I do feel like if you're looking inward, like, oh, you're very conservative and very traditional, but my mouth runs, and you will know what I'm thinking about without a doubt. And he welcomes it because he feels that there's my voice and my input is valid and important,
That's
which
good.
is so nice. And so
It
some
is.
folks look at our family and we're like, I don't know who to talk to or who to ask. Should I ask Michelle or should I ask her husband? Like, who is it? Because we're gonna talk. We're gonna come in concert and have a conversation. So I cook, I do some cleaning. I'm not good at cleaning, but you know what I mean? And I put the kids, but like when it comes like bedtime and like big decisions, they go right to dad. They're like, we
I
want
love it.
dad. Because they know that like those are the spots that he's chosen to
yeah,
help them in, and that he's like sometimes he puts all the kids to bed, and I'm like, I tried, bro. Like they're not responding. I'm like, I'll literally text him tapping out.
yeah, yeah.
And he's like, I'm coming in, or like we'll switch. I'm like, uh, but
That's
yeah,
good. Yeah, I
Q,
do believe too. I'm similar. I want to say I'm a bit more traditional when it comes to relationship for myself, but I'm flexible with strengths as well.
yeah,
So I'm a person who absolutely now when I say traditional, if you think traditional means I am Betty Crocker, Chef Boyardee's cousin, or anything like that, I am reading a mean recipe. Amen. That's what I'm doing. I am saving TikTok videos and I am
yes,
following the recipes. Like that's what I'm
yes,
doing. So I do, but I do love to cook for my family. I do appreciate that. I don't invalidate the chef of the house if my significant other was to be out. I dated a guy once who that was his, like, he loved to cook and he loved to mend that part, and that was fine. But I like to contribute because I do love to serve in that aspect. But I also, Sean, I've laid laminate wood floors. I do renovations, projects. So, when it comes to that, I may be the one leading that up. Like, okay, this
yeah,
is what we need. This is how we're gonna go about it. And because I also love math, I'm really good at being able to like figure out how much product, how much it's going to cost us to do the project and things like that. So traditional, but with a flair, you know what I mean?
yes,
I love it. I love it. Yeah, because sometimes my wife and I we have a role sometimes, but I'm more of like we're like whatever needs to be met.
Because that's it.
yes,
That's
Yeah.
a partnership, if you ask
Yeah,
me.
something's going
yes.
on, somebody need to tackle it. Now, for the most part, my wife is not a fan of pumping gas or doing yard work, so I'm like,
I love cutting the grass.
now
I
see, now here's
I
the
love
thing.
it.
Yeah, we pay somebody. We be paying for services now. I'm just like, I need time to use my mind in this place. I can be
Yeah.
making some money on this. But anyway,
And
um,
that's valuable too. I think it's
Yeah.
a I think those are things, the evolution of where we are in life today. I think I heard somebody quote a statistic. I don't remember what it was, but it talked about how the average family, we're way busier than we used to be like 10 years ago. We are literally assuming way more responsibilities between our kids being active in their own programs and us as parents having to yield to that. We are being willing to support our kiddos in the things that they're doing just almost like they got a job in a W-2. Okay. But meanwhile, because of that, now we get to prioritize. And like I tell people, prioritizing means that there's a bunch of competing important things. And so because there are a bunch of competing important things, what am I going to put at the top of the list? So if time with my family is it's not that I don't value cutting grass or like cutting grass. It's just not the thing I want to spend. I want to keep on the level of important things so I can do what I do actually feel needs to go to the top of the list, which is spending time with family. So I do find that we outsource a lot more, which is good because that means that, for one, I thank you, God, for blessing all the households out there that so we can outsource so that we can do what I feel like God wants us to do anyway, which is really develop our families, spend time with one another. So kudos to you and your grass cutter.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't cut it in the summer. I ain't cutting it in the summer. I'll make that very clear. That we pay for the summer.
Kudos to you, Michelle, for cutting the grass and making the pretty lines
But it's like,
look in the seasons that work for you,
oldest daughter syndrome. No boys at home growing up. So it was like someone had to do it. It's like,
I got you.
Ain't gonna be my mom. It's gonna be me. I'm out there cutting the grass and I'm like, I gotta go home and change and shower so I can hit the club afterwards. So it's like, yeah, 100%. 100%. But no, I hear you. I love that. We're so busy. We're so enthralled in lives. So yeah, busy.
Wow. I have one last question because Michelle, you like knocked it out of the park. You cover all the bases, like in park home run, out of park home run.
Exactly.
I will ask though, someone is pregnant. She's 6 months pregnant.
It's not me.
It ain't me either.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's hypothetical. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to put that on you, Q. I didn't want to, everybody like, oh, Quilla pregnant now.
Brush it away, or brush it away.
If I had no, I had a hysterectomy. If I have babies at this point, study me.
Girl, same. I yeeted that girl. She's out.
Yeah,
she had to go.
Okay.
Yeah. I hear you. I had my last kid at 43.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm Father Abraham. I'm done. My wife went out, I went in. I was like,
Listen, I got you.
Yeah.
But anyway,
okay, so hypotheticals.
yeah,
Hypothetical.
hypotheticals. Yeah,
Okay.
hypothetical question. 6 months pregnant.
Okay.
What is your advice to her?
Oh, okay. 6 months pregnant. This is where we ask the hard questions to our provider. So we're going to go to our provider and we're going to say, what is your viewpoint if I want to push on all fours? What is your viewpoint if I don't want to attend the induction? And get their point of view because we want to see what the provider already has in mind for this delivery. And that's the part of protecting yourself. They could say, oh, you do whatever you want. You say, okay, can you please put it in my notes that you're going to allow me to push any position I choose? Can you please put it in my notes that I will not attend an induction unless medically necessary? And then we'll see one of two things. We'll see pushback going like, well, why? Why do you want me to put in the notes? Or we'll see a provider go, yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, you can come push however you'd like. You can have intermittent monitoring. You can no inductions or no pain meds unless necessary. We'll see providers that are like, yes, I want to do that and let you do what you'd like. Or we see folks that are like, you got to fall in line. If you don't fall in line, I'm not going to deliver you. And that sometimes is happening. We're seeing, even here in Austin, we're seeing providers go, sorry, hands off, see somebody else, because you're just asking questions to protect yourself. The next thing I would do for 6 months is look at what the first 6 months of life is going to look like for your family. And so what does that first 6 months look like? Is there savings that we can try to get together? Is there the situation for the lease? Is the lease going to be up? Are we going to have to pay mortgage? What does housing look like? How can we secure housing and make sure that's not going to be an issue? Check vehicle maintenance. Make sure there's nothing coming up for the vehicle so we know that, like, for instance, when we had the freeze here in Austin a few years ago, people were trying to get their cars started. Their batteries were dead and drained. They're in labor. They can't get to the hospital because their battery was, close to end of life. But they had done some vehicle maintenance in that 6 month, 7 month window. They would have known the battery needs to be recharged. They need to, change over the vehicle, whatever. So vehicle maintenance, I think, is important. Relationship maintenance. Ask those big questions. What are you going to do if this is the only child we can have? What are you going to do if I don't want to go back to work after I have this baby? What are you going to do if I want to work more and have more babies? Have those conversations. And then also the big thing I ask for most of my women is I tell them, we do not subscribe to snapback culture. We do not subscribe to that in the first year of life, which means we're not going to try to conform to the society's viewpoint that after you have a baby, you're like, Princess Kate standing outside for paparazzi in a beautiful gown full of makeup with hair done. That is not reality.
I just
That is,
love you. I just love you.
thank you. But we're not doing that. It
Yeah.
took 9 months to create this baby. It can take 9 to 18 months to return to some form of normal. And the reason why I say some form of normal is some of us never return back to those bodies. Now, I'll tell you right now, I am never going to be where I was before I had my first child. Like, that's just not going to happen. And I'm thankful for it because that person she was young, she was naive, she was fresh, she had no idea what the heck she was doing, and I'm a new person. So I like to tell folks, you are a new person. We're literally shedding off who we were with childbirth and becoming a new person. So start journaling, start doing some internal work about our past experiences, write letters to baby, write letters to yourself, because it'll be helpful to reflect back on what it looks like, even if pregnancy is horrible. Write back like, this is not good, because after you deliver, pregnancy amnesia comes around and you're like, oh my gosh, I want another baby. And you're like, girl, weren't you throwing up every day for 6 months? No, I want another. You have to write those things down because you will not believe yourself. And tell a friend, if I tell you I want another kid, you're going to smack me, right? So I don't do this again.
I did. I had accountability partners with that.
Good, good. Because it's helpful. It's helpful because we forget.
Yeah.
And I remember it's like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. I had twins. And then I'm like, let's do it again. And my husband's like, you literally had a 2-hour C-section to deliver these babies. Like, you want to do that again? I'm like, no, you're right. That was a bad idea. Because if you have twins, you usually have twins again. There's more chances for it.
Mhm.
But
Wow.
That's
but yeah.
good.
So that's
good.
my little
Really
list.
good information. Absolutely.
Yeah. And how much does that dynamic change if the father isn't involved?
So the dynamic does change significantly. And so I plead with those that are single parenting by choice, or the father is overseas, or they just do not have a partner, to look for community and find it. And so the cool thing about being 2025, I speak specifically for Austin, we have an amazing perinatal community. There's always going to be online groups, in-person groups. There's even single by choice groups. We have some great places here in Austin that folks can come and just connect with families, find that village. And if you don't know what to do, find a doula, send them an email. They know someone. They can connect you with resources for your area. They will know who's holding the groups where they are, send you information. And then for postpartum mental health, Postpartum Support International, PSI, they have a whole list of nationwide support for postpartum mental health groups that people can attend. There's even a group for men to attend as well. So please get out and find that community, because that is the biggest thing, is finding somebody else that understands what you're going through. And then if you are a father who is not with their children and you want to reconnect, there's no better time than now to send that message if it makes the right choice for that family to reconnect. Because I'm a big believer in reunification. So if the children are not with family or with parents, do what we can, honor people's boundaries, respect them, and it never hurts to say I'm sorry
Yeah.
and I apologize. And sometimes those words are like hot lava coming out the mouth. So I say, even if it's to yourself, even if it's to yourself. And so a lot of preparing for parenthood is mental health work and writing notes and talking to yourself and figuring out how you're going to survive.
Yeah. Wow. Ooh, that great. I love this episode. Thank you so much, Michelle,
You're
for
welcome.
such an informative episode that's going to help so many people. Can you let everyone know how they can get in touch with you?
So I am the Galactic Doula, because I am all things space and nerdy, if you haven't noticed. I was trying not to wear like star signs and other things, but so I'm on all the social medias as Galactic Doula, and I'm the galacticdoula.com. And then if you are in Austin, Texas, and you want birth support, I do direct support. If you are a doula and you're like, hey, I want to do what you do, I do have a mentorship on Patreon that is equity based, meaning that is not going to cost you $1 billion, because becoming a doula costs money, and I do not think it's the right thing to do to charge people more money for support. And so it is very low income based. I want people to get education support from all bases. But yeah, galacticdoula.com, that's me. And I am an open book. So if you like what you hear, send me an email. I will respond.
Awesome. Awesome. For sure. I'll have everything linked up in the description below.
Awesome.
Q, let everyone know how they can get in touch with you.
I would say TikTok, but
I
TikTok is
know,
back.
man.
I know,
TikTok is
but for
back.
some people who decided to delete their app and it's no longer available to them,
I
I
saw
just
a girl.
I just wanted to give a moment of silence for them. You know what I'm saying?
I saw a girl in Michigan go into Canada to re-download it. She's like, it's 30 minutes away. Canada's 30 minutes away.
So that's the trick. We just can't, we don't have access to it. We'd have to go into a place where there's no.
Hmm. I didn't delete it. I kept it because I was like,
Yeah, my TikTok. Yeah,
I
my
didn't
TikTok's
delete it
still
either.
jumping.
But I did get a new device today.
oh,
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
my daughter's teasing me like, yeah, mom,
Yeah.
you won't have TikTok. She
Wow.
she don't know me. I'll go to Canada too now that I know that.
well, in browser, you can probably use it in browser.
Yeah, right? Oh my God.
But
Well,
anyhow,
yeah.
Instagram, Instagram and Facebook as Aquila and I think that's pretty much it. So, and of course, if you search me on here, you'll find me on YouTube. I think there's also some other stuff on YouTube as well. But yep, Aquila, cut and dry, y'all, the inspirationalist.
Ooh,
For
I like
sure.
it.
Thank
For
you.
sure. This has been a phenomenal episode. If you are watching this via YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, share this with a friend, put this in your group chat. I always tell y'all, it's like 4 or 5 of y'all that had this group chat. And you put this episode in there, and then you have a conversation about it afterwards. And plus, you can run up my hours on YouTube. So share this video with a friend. Hit the subscribe button. We'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments below. If you are listening to this via podcast, make sure you leave a rating and review. By doing so, put you in a drawing for a free Amazon gift card. Who doesn't like free stuff? This is Sean Heineman, and I'm out with special guest.
Aquila Maddox. And
Michelle Cruz. Michelle Cruz.
Love it. Love it. Brave Hearts community, take care.